Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time for Making a Connection, brought to you by Antaira. And today, we're going to talk about that world, the difficulty of keeping connections in a world where, well, cybersecurity is maybe not all it should be or could be. We've got somebody, an expert, who's going to join us today and talk about this changing face of cybersecurity, the new challenges that face us all here as we try and keep everything connected. Henry Martel from Antaira. Welcome, sir.
Good. Thank you for having me.
You've talked about some really technical stuff here today. Today, we're going to go way up. We're going to go 30,000 feet up, and we're going to try and take a big, broad overview of the current state of cybersecurity in the face of so many new challenges that we hadn't thought of even maybe a year or two ago. Let's talk about cybersecurity a little bit here. Is it getting harder to keep the entire network safe?
It is. It is. The landscape for the network is definitely changed in the last couple of years. And COVID and everybody staying at home definitely had an impact on it.
So what does it do when people are working at home? We somehow assume that they're at home and they're not going to infect or bring malware or problems into the company's server, but they're logging onto the company's server from home. And that alone seems problematic, but at their house, they've also got Xboxes and printers and all sorts of other unsecured stuff in their home network that I can access. If I get into their home network and their home computer, can't I then jump into the corporate network when they log on?
Yeah, and that's what's actually happening.
So casually,
yeah,
sure.
What we've seen since 2019 is an explosion in ransomware, right? With everybody being home, working from home, and most people have some type of corporate laptop or some type of corporate device that they used to log into. And when they log into this device, you have all those corporate securities.
Right.
At home, not everybody has up-to-date security. Not everybody has an up-to-date firewall.
And my refrigerator is on my home network now, and my TV is, and my toaster, and everything else, it seems like. So that stuff's not secure.
It's not. And most people don't think about home security or when they're logging into the corporate network from their home, on their home devices.
Even in my office here, we were talking beforehand, I was trying to hook up some Bluetooth speaker in my studio here to my laptop. So I flick on Bluetooth and I say, show me all the devices. In addition to my Bluetooth speaker, there were 20 devices. I don't know where they are. They're in the offices around me, in the floors up above. We're in this big office tower here. And I thought I could just as easily, these are all unprotected devices, mostly printers or some other crazy things, other Bluetooth speakers, other sorts of things. Couldn't I just log on to that and instantly be in all the networks of all the businesses around me in this building?
Well, Bluetooth is a different type of technology, but yeah, you can definitely pair your phone or your device with another Bluetooth device. We've had that happen in barbecues when someone's on a phone and suddenly they take over the family speaker and they put their music on, or someone is casting to the TV, because security is something that most people think is IT related, and it's an IT type of problem. If I'm at home,
right,
I know most people think I'm connected to the internet. I don't have, or they don't think about the implications of having, malware or something on the network that's going to attack them.
So you've now allowed your employees to go home, and maybe you gave them a corporate secure laptop, but that's not working real good. I'm just going to log on with my personal laptop, which is now filled with all this other junk.
Yeah,
that I can now pass on this malware. And is that why ransomware attacks have escalated, where they suddenly get in and suddenly lock the whole thing down and want to ransom millions of dollars?
Yeah, you know what? I am not on the front line as a lot of security experts are, but from people in the industry that I know, and just with the as overall seeing the two items, people being locked down and the increase in cyber attacks, you have to put two and two together.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to say, hey, you're at home, you're not on the corporate laptop that we issued you with, the antivirus with the firewall.
Right.
You logged in from your computer that you have your baby videos on, and that, you're doing some, watching.
You
YouTube
found the flash drive out in the parking lot and you stuck it in there to see what was on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the device you logged into your corporate network. So imagine you're a control engineer. no, or you're some type of, you have high level access to systems. Now, most people are responsible, but there's a few that are not who
Yeah.
have access, and I believe when those people who are not as responsible or not as mindful are at home on their home network logging into these devices, control systems, they're passing on the malware that's been dormant on their system.
Do people use the same security standards that they preach and adopt at the office,
No,
at home?
no, no. I would say no, just because at the corporate office, you might, they might preach the security policy to you, but you have some type of
Don't
IT
open that
person.
email if you don't know who sent it to you. Don't just somebody find a flash drive. Don't just stick it in your computer to see what's on it. Oh boy, let's see. I got a free flash drive here. Other crazy things I've heard through the years people do.
And people do it. That's absolutely true. But again, there's always some type of barrier, right? You have an IT manager or an IT personnel that's kind of responsible overseeing the company network. But besides the adult, what about the kid, right? The kid has his laptop. His friend gave him some videos to watch on for whatever they're going to watch, and then they plug something in, and that hard drive or that video that they downloaded, or the YouTube videos or the little pictures that they're opening, those have malware.
Yeah.
And so now that's on your network.
That's how they got the kids to
spreads.
open them for free. Hey, kids, open this and you can see something for free. Sure.
Yeah, and then once it's on your network, it starts to spread to the devices, and it lays dormant. And then before you know it, there's a keylogger. There's something that's on your network that shouldn't be there because your 14-year-old son with his 14-year-old friends, passing 14-year-old stuff around, and now it's on your computers.
And you infected accidentally the giant corporate network. The giant case years ago, I think it was Target that got breached, and it was made the headlines. And it was not through an obvious source. It was through some minor sub-vendor, somebody who did their air conditioning or something else. They'd given them access to some part of the system, and they ended up infecting and opening the door to people stealing all this information.
Right, and I'm sure that vendor, when he was accessing, whatever he was accessing, didn't think about the security implications.
No.
And, wasn't mindful of security policies when you're logging into a big company like Target.
So 3 things. 1, people are at home now, unsecured networks with all this unsecured devices and other people, kids and other stuff accessing it. And now you are taking that unsecured connection and connecting to a secured network. 1, you're at home.
Right.
2, you've also got this whole thing going on with a ton of internet devices, the Internet of Things. It seems like everything, literally my refrigerator is now on the internet. And my printer, did I, or even if the corporate office, hey, we bought a new refrigerator for the break room, and it's got internet capabilities, so we can put our schedules up. We can watch videos on the break or something here, like these new TVs do. Did anybody ever think about, oops, maybe we should protect those too?
Well, no.
Yeah.
I'll just be honest with
That's
you.
the answer,
The security
no.
policies that are there are not really in place. On the industrial side, so when you talk about control networks, they do have different layers of security. But if you do log in from an infected machine, right, you have a VPN connection, a virtual private network connection.
Right.
Well, that connection doesn't help if the computer that's logging in is infected. Right, so now you got malware that's transforming, that's actually changing as it spreads through the network, and before you know it, you have critical files or backup files, and everything's encrypted.
And suddenly you're getting this ransomware attack from somebody in Moldova,
Right.
or someplace you never heard of, saying, we have your computer locked down, give us $1 million. And that seems far-fetched to me and ridiculous, but it's happening every day. You said it, we won't name the company, but prior to working, I guess, for Antaira, you had something to do with a big hotel somewhere, and you were saying they got hit with a ransomware.
Yeah, so one of the front desk employees was downloading pictures from something, and it had malware on it, and that malware came in, and then it locked down a lot. The malware came in, it spread, and it locked down a lot of archives. So it didn't really get into the financial aspect of it,
Right.
but there was just a lot of backups and a lot of old memorabilia.
It's an old famous, we're not going to name it, but it was an old famous hotel, and they lost a lot of stuff because they hadn't backed that stuff up, apparently.
Right. And that's what our job was, to go in there and to kind of back everything up and to get all these systems in place. But during that process, as we came in and we started working with the systems, this actually, it happened. And so we got to see it live, and then we seen the pop-ups, and they're asking for so many bitcoins, and they had 72 hours to comply, or
Wow.
else everything was going to be locked.
And you're saying that this company who had been brought in to protect it apparently on their own decided not to pay it without even giving the client the chance.
Yeah, and that I think personally, I think that was like the biggest mishap. Like we should have given the client the opportunity, or at least present them like, hey, this is what we're at. This
And
is
here's
the
what
ransom.
we're recommending. Yeah.
But we didn't do that, and it was, they lost a lot of data, and it was one of those things that I do regret. But again, I didn't have that option. There was people above me who made that choice. I was just just a worker bee at that time.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we got people at home, an unsecured network. We got tons of unsecured devices, printers, TVs, toasters. I would say toasters. I don't know if they really are, but it seems like every device is going to be connected to the internet soon. And talk about this. I don't even know if I quite understand this. AI. How is AI getting introduced into the networks?
So when you have a control system, right? Control systems, or you have a manufacturer who has multiple plants.
Right.
On those plants, they can have sensors, right? Pressure release valve sensors, floodgates, all these different types
Tons
of
of
sensors.
them on tons of machines and doors and cameras and sensors and everything. Right.
Right. So one person or a small group of people can't really monitor all that stuff, right? There's just so many devices. It's just, you just can't do it. And so now we're starting to see a lot of companies introduce AI, and what they do, what the AI technology does, is it takes a snapshot of the daily activity of all the sensors and all the devices that are interconnected. And once it's got like we'll call it a baseline. And once the baseline is approved and it's set up,
right,
and they can know exactly what's happening with the network. When they see anything that's any kind of anomalies in those baselines, right? When you start to see a lot of traffic coming out, or one sensor, for instance, or you start
because
to
it's
see
the anomaly that suggests something's bad's happening in the background here.
yes, right? And that's what the AI does. It's able to watch all these sensors all at one time, and then
rapidly process, because there must be tons of data. I guess that's what I'm getting at. It seems like with so much data flooding in like a fire hose, humans can't figure it out, can't sift through it. So we're turning to machines who can process this data faster and recognize patterns, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. Because you figure, just on 100 sensors that have all these things going on, as a person, you're trying to monitor all this, it's tough,
All right, so you guys work in a very fascinating subspecialty of a subspecialty of a really tiny little niche, and that is industrial Ethernet switches, right? That's mostly what you guys do, which is the final point at which all this data connects to the internet, that all these systems talk to each other around the world and around the globe, or to corporate headquarters, right? They've all got to get on the internet. And we've talked about before how that's the last thing anybody thinks about. Okay, just go get a switcher somewhere. Go to Best Buy and get a switcher or something here. Go to anywhere, just get a switcher. A switcher, as if they're all the same, but they break. They don't work under pressure. They don't work under heat. They don't have backups. Go listen to that other fascinating podcast. We were talking about your, what do you call it, ping or something?
Yeah, it's a ping alive feature.
And is it alive?
Yeah.
Can we talk to it? Otherwise, I got to go climb to the bottom of the factory, to the back of the sewer pipe, to where we put that thing, and go find it and see what the heck's wrong with it.
Yeah, figure out why it's not working. So in the industrial space, we do see a lot of technology rapidly growing, and I personally think it's outpacing the IT space.
That's what I'm getting
just
at.
because we have so many critical systems, right? You got wastewater treatment centers, you got power, you got energy, transportation. You have so many different industries that rely on this equipment that it's critical equipment, and it's actually being forced to upgrade and forced to expand.
And so much data coming at them so quickly from so many different devices that they can't possibly watch or monitor it all. So now they're turning to robots and to artificial intelligence to try and watch it for me. Does that open another door to the robots watching the robots? Who's watching the hen house here?
Yeah,
the hens are watching the hen house. Yeah,
that's a good question. So at the end of the day, I think we're going to move to that type of technology where we have an AI system within an AI system, and then just little different facets watching different components, different switches, different sensors. I'm trying to monitor data, trying to catch that little anomaly, trying to catch that little bandwidth spike and figure out
and
what
make
that
sure
is.
that the robot who's watching isn't infected or has a problem here too.
Let's not go on that avenue.
The robot's watching the robots here watch the robots.
Once we get that robot, and he switches sides on us, we're in trouble.
We're in trouble. Yeah. All right. So that's a pretty scary looking picture ahead here. More potential for cyberware or cybersecurity than ever before. Even things like ransomware and bad things happening, or just maybe it's not that bad. Maybe just the system goes down or it doesn't function. And how critical is that if you're trying to manage a waste management plant or run an assembly line or something here, or keep the oil flowing in an oil pipeline, all these other crazy things you guys have worked on. So what can be done to help? How do you mitigate any of this new security landscape?
Well, believe it or not, it's not as complicated as you think. And
Oh,
there's a lot of
thank
things
goodness.
that people can do to help mitigate these problems, right? Two-factor authentication, and make sure your security policies are in place, make sure people are using corporate networks, corporate machines. Those little small things that people don't really pay attention to are the way or the reasons that people are actually getting into networks.
Talk about that two-factor identification. I'm frustrated by it. Every time I want to go on, now I have to go. It didn't recognize my laptop, so now it goes to send a code to my smartphone. Is this really you? Are you really trying to do this? And I say yes, and then it finally lets me go in. Maybe I have to type in another code, and I'm just so frustrated. Just make the damn thing work.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that two-factor authentication does do a lot of. It is a great little barrier that they have in place. Does it stop everything? No, of course not. But it does provide an extra layer of protection, and that is actually part of the government standards and the government policies. As vendors, when we connect to corporate networks, or I mean to governmental networks, or if we make devices that are involved in government or in military applications, a two-factor authentication is one of the requirements that they do have, because it is a proven technology and it does work.
Anything else you talked about? How about just sort of a layered approach to this whole thing? That it isn't just one thing that's going to stop it. It's layers that you got to get through, right?
Yeah. So there's different types of layers, right? The best and the first, I guess the layer that's the closest to the devices is the human layer, right? That's what I call it. So you just got to educate your people, educate your technicians, educate everybody that's connecting to a device, vendors, for instance, right? If they come in to do some work, educate your vendors on security policies.
And how do they prove to you? Again, I brought up the case, exactly. Here's Giant Target, and they let somebody in on some small vendor to do something. I don't know if it was at one store or a series of stores, but if I remember correctly, it was air conditioning. And they let them access to the system to see some, because they're monitoring the systems. And in so doing, they opened a door for somebody to come in and steal all this customer data here. How would they know that the vendor's secure? They tell them what they wanted to do, but I don't know that they're really going to do it. I'm not monitoring the vendor.
Right. So you're actually probably monitoring the contractor. You probably have some type of agreement with the contractor, and then the contractor gets subcontractors to come out and do the work.
Exactly.
And I think that's where the human aspect comes in. You got to have good communication with your contractors. You got to have good communication with the subcontractors. Maybe give some paperwork, maybe put them in a class so they understand the severity of a little misstep and what it can happen, and the damage it can cause.
We had somebody years ago, not on this show, but another show, who did high-level cybersecurity for things like Citibank, big banks and institutions. And they do, it's almost like wargaming. They go in and try and break into the system and see if they can find the vulnerability all the time. And at the end of the day, this may be harsh, this may be shocking, but he said, you can't stop it all. People are going to get in. The question is, how far do they get in, and how fast do you find it and recover?
Yeah, that's absolutely 100% true. You can't stop it all. It's just there's too much, and there's too many. There's too many applications coming at you from too many angles.
So then it's the recovery plan. It's not only finding it as quickly as you can, like you say, these anomalies, these changes in something, but it's the recovery plan. How do you notify everybody? How do you switch? How do you back it up? How do you get back in business, right?
Yeah, so that's part of the recovery plan, right? You have policies, security policies that say, hey, if these machines go offline, or how quickly can we bring them up? And then I've seen companies where they actually take it a step further. Well, maybe like once a year or twice a year, they'll actually have emergency scenarios. Well, they'll do testing. Well, they'll take a main machine offline, or they'll do something to mimic.
They'll create a problem just to see how we recover. Yeah.
Right, and they go through the security policies. So when that does happen, because it eventually will, at some point you will be
you'll be
infected.
Hacked. You'll be attacked.
You'll be hacked. You can't stop it. It's inevitable. But the way you recover from that, I think that's what's going to get everything going again, right? Your plant goes offline. Well, how quick can you get your backups in place? You get your files reconfigured. How, if you have to delete the configurations and build them from scratch, that's going to take a lot of time. But if you have backup files that you can just delete what we got here and just upload something new, that's going to save a massive
So I'll
amount of
give
time.
you a chance to do a plug for Antaira here. You're just the last point that connects this giant network of stuff to the internet, the industrial Ethernet switch. Is there anything that you guys do to help this process? Anything baked or built into your products that you want to plug or talk about here?
Yeah, we do. We have a whole suite of security features and enhanced security features that we do have on our operating system within our switches, and they're really robust. You can do filtering down to the device level. You can secure things on the port level. You can set up security so only one device that's connected to the particular port could communicate, and if that device is disconnected, that port will shut down and you cannot reuse that port again. So there are ways at the hardware level that we set up and through software on our switches that can prevent people from being in areas they shouldn't be within the network, and ways to kind of cut off areas of the network as far as like physically being there, disconnecting, reconnecting.
That's
we do
assuring. I don't know that
features.
everybody has it. Too often I think of it. I think of an Ethernet switch as sort of like that mic that you're talking into. It just takes whatever you're sending and send it out to the internet here. It doesn't filter it. Although I do have a little pop filter on it, so it takes some of the hisses and stuff here. And maybe I could set up a time delay thing, so if you started swearing, I could hit a mute button or something here. But it's pretty much just a pipeline. Whatever comes in, it sends it right to the board, and I send it straight out to the recording or to the internet here. I would think a lot of industrial switches just work that way. They're just a pass-through. They're a point of connection, but they just pass through whatever comes to them.
And a lot of them are, but and a lot of the major manufacturers do have some type of security embedded into their switches. I like to say Antaira we are on the front line of everything, and we do have a lot of enhanced security features that have saved companies time and money.
Well, that's partly why we do this show, to bring awareness to these problems you're seeing every day. And you get a chance to plug your products and talk about how you're tackling them on your end, because this is an ever-going thing. I don't think it's once and done, right?
Yeah, this is ever evolving, ever changing. We'll be here. My grandkids will be here talking about cybersecurity in the future. It's not going anywhere.
Well, so tune in again next week, folks, because we're going to have more discussions about this same stuff. In fact, we got a fascinating one coming up talking about intelligent transportation systems, where they're connecting roads and lights and signals and all this stuff. Another whole part of this world of interconnected stuff, and how difficult it is to keep it connected and protected here. Thank you, Henry from Antaira, for bringing this to light. I hope you'll come back and give us more ideas and updates as this story continues to evolve.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. Boy, if that's not a reason to tune in and listen to more, I don't know what is. Because making a connection, it's more than just about hooking stuff up. It's about, well, a continuing connection, a safe connection, an ongoing connection, like we hope we're developing with you in this show here. Making a Connection, brought to you by Antaira. Right here in Orange County's only community radio station, OCTalkRadio.net.